like we are live.
All right.
All right. So, welcome back, everybody, to the Flip Side with JB and Dr. Rob. We are here tonight, Sunday night, and tonight's discussion is going to be about evolution and a couple of other topics that we just want to kind of run through tonight. Hey, Rob, what's up?
Hey, JB, how are you, sir?
I'm hanging in there, man. Another long week of work. You know how it goes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
So,
just had
go ahead.
I was gonna say we just had some of my kids hanging all over the place right before we got started,
Yeah.
trying to give them a place to run around for a while we're on. So
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can um, we can get through this session without too many interruptions. So to say, hey, if anything, just to make it all the way through would be another major accomplishment for us.
I think we'll make it without too many special guests.
Right. Right. Well, it's a blessing just for us to be able to get together at this time. We've been trying. So yeah, what's up, man? What's been going on?
Hey, it's been good. We've been uh, with work, starting a different hours arrangement from one of the other physical therapists, moving on to another company at my office where I work during the week. And we're actually right now prayerfully looking at buying a property to renovate. So we've been doing a lot of research on, how to go about that, and getting a lot of people trying to help us on it. So I'll let you know how that goes.
Right.
That's something to pray over for sure.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, lots of new things.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So yeah, before we get started into stuff, I got a little story I want to tell you, and I briefly mentioned this to you earlier in the week, and it's one of those things that's like for the Christian person, for the Christian believer, they're gonna say, "Wow, that was God," and for anybody else, they're probably gonna say, "Man, you're crazy." So, so on my way to work this week, I'm leaving from North Carolina. I'm driving up Highway 95, and as soon as I cross into the Virginia line, I get this urge to use the bathroom. And so, normally, I'm driving or whatever, I try to make it a certain spot and stop, and then try to time my stops or whatever. But, anyways, for this particular day, I stopped at this rest stop, and I walk in to the men's bathroom. They've got the urinals on the wall. It's probably like 10 urinals on the wall. So I walk up to the urinal and start doing my business. When I look down at the urinal, in the metal plate where you flush the toilet, my name is inscribed in the metal. I mean, it's like real jagged or whatever. It wasn't like perfect, but it's Jamal, my name, on the toilet handle where I flush. So the 2 or 3 days I'm trying to figure out, like, how is this coincidence or what? So my question for anybody in the stream, my question for anybody that watches this video, leave a comment in the chat. Am I crazy? Or is this just a chance happening that I just happen to walk up to a urinal that somebody scratched my name in the metal? All right. So that's part one. Part two. 3 days after that, I'm trying to figure out. I'm still trying to figure out how that happened, why that happened, if it was some chance or is God trying to get my attention. And so, I'm always messing around with my computer, and I was thinking about 666, and 666 is the devil's number, right? So 777 is God's number. So I was thinking about making a logo with three sevens that would make a triangle that would kind of represent the Trinity. And so just thinking about that in my mind, I was at work the next day and I was in my truck doing my paperwork. And where I'm parked at, there's a loading docks for trucks, 18 wheelers to pull in. Is where I'm sitting at. An 18 wheeler drives by my truck real slow. You'll never guess what the name of the trucking company was. 777 Express with the exact logo that
Oh, that you were thinking of.
that I was thinking about. It wasn't exactly, but it was three sevens in a triangle. All right? Am I crazy? Or is God trying to get my attention? Number three. So sometimes I kind of have conversations with God like the way that we're conversating right now. And so I say, well, God, if you're trying to tell me something, you don't want to try to, you're not trying to test God, but at the same time, I know He's real. All right, I'm thinking about birds. I'm thinking about a bald eagle, something you rarely see. I get to Hampton Roads, Virginia yesterday. I see a bald eagle. Am I crazy? God's trying to get my attention. Is He talking to me? Is He trying to reveal Himself to me? Or what? What do you think? If that was to happen to you, how would you respond to it?
I always think like God has His way of reaching out to everybody who's important to Him, and it's funny how He does it. Because you remember with Elijah with the ravens, right? He was out there when they were bringing him food. That was a miraculous thing, but he was out there hiding, and I want to say he was trying to reach out to God, and it was, I think God sent like a whirlwind, and then He sent like a fire, and it was like all these things, and like God was not in the whirlwind, He wasn't in the fire. I'm trying to remember what the other thing was. I think the one was a fire, but I know one was a whirlwind, and it was like God was in a still small voice. And it's kind of cool that like God knows your heart, so He knows what kind of things will get your attention.
Right.
So I don't know. I think that's cool. It's making me think all kind of funny things. So like each one of those things like almost seemed like it had some meaning to it, and I don't want to start interpreting, but my mind's going places.
So hold on.
Maybe I'll tell you
on.
afterward what I'm thinking.
So hold on. That was going to be my next question, or my next statement was going to be after going through and thinking about this and really kind of sitting down and just I'm in awe. I'm in shock right now. So the first thing that came to my heart and in my spirit was, if I can lead you directly to a urinal in a bathroom with your name on it, think about where else I can lead you in life if you put your trust and stuff in me, right? And so that was the message, and then like the confirmation of that was seeing the trucking company, the 777 Express. That message to me in my heart and in my spirit was, I know what you're thinking. I know your thoughts. I can hear your voice. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and so, and then the third one was just kind of like, all right, since you want to play, hey, here's your bald eagle. If you want to see a bald eagle, here it is. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Man, I just think that's cool. I know that like God's way of sort of leading people in, it's like there's more. Like I think that's what I would say to you is it's not going to end at a bald eagle. Like you're going to find out that God is interested in you every day, and he's leading you one thing, then another thing, then another thing. And I think I was mentioning this before, because it's something that's on my mind a little bit, is like Moses hitting the rock with the staff. Remember that in the Old Testament?
Yeah.
And God wanted him to speak to the rock. And he was like still in hitting the rock with the staff mode, but it's like kind of like God has another step. Sometimes it's like gets more and more and more real,
Yeah.
as we go. So my mind was going when you first said that was like, because some people think, oh, my name's on a urinal. Oh no, what does that mean? Am I just something to flush, or whatever? And all of a sudden you have an important thought, and now it's on a truck, but it's like, but someone else stole my idea, or, and then all of a sudden you see like, then God just sends you something that's just free in nature. It's his own creation, that no one can own. And I was like, that was kind of where my mind was going. It's like, Jamal, not only like do I know your name and I know your thoughts, but you're not what people think you are, and no one can take from you what I give you. I don't know. That's what was going through my mind. I don't know if that's right or not, but you're free like that eagle, man. Like you're mine. So that was, I don't know, I'm reading into it, but that's kind of things that was, have you ever had that where you're like, why am I drawing a picture in my mind of this? I don't know, but that's what you were making me think when you're saying that.
Yeah.
But
well,
yeah, man.
I didn't want to kind of like jump to any conclusions, but at the same time, just the randomness of my thoughts and the randomness of each one of these things, but it was so specific at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so exactly what you said, I thought that a couple times too. But then it was like, just listen. Just listen and see if you can hear my voice, because I can hear you, So, now today while I was at work, I had to drive from Virginia Beach to Richmond, and each station, once the stations faded out, the next station kind of came in, or I was searching for K-Love, and everybody that was preaching this morning was preaching about fasting and praying. And so that's kind of like, I think that's kind of like the exclamation point on what was happening this week. It's like, okay, now that I got your attention, hey, I'm gonna need you to fast. I'm gonna need you to start doing this a little bit more, or I'm gonna need you to start tuning into me a little bit more, like. So that's where I'm headed with this thing. Maybe it's even fasting and praying about this YouTube channel, fasting about our relationship, fasting about how we are trying to communicate with others that listen to the channel and all of that. So, but yeah, I definitely don't want to think too much into it, but at the same time, I accept what you say is running through your head as well, because it's the same thing that ran through my head.
God he's just good.
Yeah.
And that's, there's so much to this. Yeah, it ties in a little bit too. Some of the thoughts I had on the topic you were talking about to share on too. Just, how God operates versus how people try to, write him out of the equation.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just don't believe in coincidences at all anymore. You see too many things and you're like, it can't be like it seems like it gets to be such an old cop out. Like, that's another coincidence.
Yeah.
It lined up with the last 10 coincidences.
Right.
Maybe I should stop fooling myself.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say if it was a coincidence if other people were, I guess, like other people were involved, or maybe more concrete, like physical things. But this was all mostly thought, and it's hard to think a coincidence. You know what I mean? It's like hard to. You understand what I'm saying? It's like so.
Yeah. There, there's no way for that to come in and be faked.
Right.
So
So. But yeah, didn't
that's
want to
cool.
want to take us off to left field on the evolution topic, but I think that still kind of plays into what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Probably a lot now that I think about it. Um, so I figure if you want, I can jump in a little bit. We had a pretty cool discussion just this week on evolution, but also just the whole idea of what it is that the world does as far as throwing people off. And I guess there was two things that were on my mind as far as that. One of them was I saw a YouTube video and they were talking about I think it was Dr. Craig, William Lane Craig, I think his name is, and somebody who is an atheist was talking to him about the idea of all things coming from nothing. And they brought up the thought that, well, if like they're actually right now arguing, if people are familiar with like the Marvel universe and a lot of what they show in movies, some of the popular topics are basically looking into the nature of the cosmos and reality and dimensions and all this stuff. And a lot of it is looking for more and more and more chances for what we're seeing in front of us to have happened. It's like if you found out you won the lottery and then won it again, won it again, won it again, you won it 1,000 times in a row. And you're like, yeah, but the chance was 1 in a million that I won it at all. I don't even know how to explain how I got so many chances. It's like I must be in this weird thing where there must be way more chances than I thought. Maybe it's a multiverse, where there's an infinite number of universes now I have to have because the numbers don't add up. I got way too lucky for this to be numerically possible, So anyway, they were talking about, just this concept in science that, well, the nature of nothing is to create everything. It's like in the nature of nothing. And that's where some people are at. Like some, big wig physicists that reject God, they're stuck with these weird hypotheses that on the surface, and I'll get back to this, that they're silly, but they have to hold on to this. So they're trying to justify it and try to make it make sense. So they're like, well, maybe the nature of nothing is to create everything. And so William Lane Craig was like, well, if it was the nature of nothing to create everything, which includes space, time, and matter, and all that had to come from nothing, then the time factor involved with nothing would also exist. So that means that there wouldn't be any particular time that nothing would create everything. So the nature of nothing would to be always spontaneously creating everything every time you find nothing. And the guy was like, huh. Okay, I guess you got a point. It was like one of those. And, he was smart. He was an intelligent kid. He wasn't just like, oh, but he was like, that's a good point. He was thinking through it. And I thought it's so funny that people go through all these mental, jumping jacks to try and figure out how something could have happened without God. Right. And the whole thing is they need it to happen without God. And you'll have people arguing, well, if this was one that we were talking about just the other day, it's sort of funny, is like, well, who created God? You know what I mean? So they're like, if God created everything, then someone must have created God. And then the funny thing is, if you say that, well, didn't you just make a make something out of Legos, or didn't you just write a paper, or didn't you just make a goose out of your origami or whatever? Didn't you just create something there? You just cooked a meal, you just created that. Well, if you created that, then you must have a creator. Then they're like, well, no.
Yeah.
I'm not going that far with my argument,
Yeah.
And it's like, it's sort of funny that you're left with the whole idea that does it make more sense for everything to have come from nothing, because the nature of nothing is to create everything, but nothing didn't have a creator, nothing just was nothing? Or does it make more sense that there was always something that had the capacity to create everything that we see? Right. You know what I mean? And I don't know that there's, if you're an evolutionist and you're trying to mock people for believing in God because, well, God had to have a creator. Well, like your magical nothing had to have a creator too, didn't it?
Exactly.
Like, no, the nature of nothing is to create everything. And they find out that doesn't even make sense. Then they're kind of left with nothing.
Yeah.
Again.
You're going through mental hula hoops trying to prove something.
Yeah, and it's a really awkward place to leave yourself if you're going to try and pretend that everything you see around you is not miraculous. It's not incredibly well designed. It's not something that can't just emerge out of nothing. Right. And I'm looking at it thinking, the Bible talks about God's creation testifying of him. And, I was, for one point, I was trying to figure out like a little bit of what does that mean in context of science and all that. But just the existence of everything, brings up a lot of those questions of why does a scientist have to have a reason everything came? They're going all the way back to like trying to figure out how nothing makes everything. Why does it even matter? You know what I mean? Because the problem is here we are, there you are, Jamal, on the other side of the screen. If I look at you and I'm like, must have just come from nothing.
Yeah.
He just popped out of the screen. Blank screens produce Jamals. It makes sense to me. That's not true. Right. It's like you're looking at something that if you're the first other human being I saw, I'd have to be in awe. I'm like, oh my gosh!
Well, one of those,
how?
a good way and a good analogy for me, like to kind of explain something like that would be, in my line of work, I work with PLCs and logic and stuff like that, and so those parts in those PLC cabinets don't program themselves. The PLCs don't program themselves. We don't take a box of parts and dump them on the table and they jump into the cabinet and assemble themselves. Somebody had to design the circuit. Somebody had to give specs for each circuit and all of that. So it's the same thing with us. If you look at the intelligent design in us, just human beings, period, you could understand the intelligent design that it takes to build machinery, equipment, and stuff like that. So, none of that stuff just like you say, it just doesn't. It would be happening all the time if the nature of nature was to create, So.
Yeah. It's almost like the fact that we're here is incredible, period.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's really the quandary if you're trying to write God out of the equation, is something incredible exists. And trying to come up with a reason for such an incredible thing to exist, like all of nature, all of astronomy, every person, all of biology, all of geometry, all of geography, all of geology, all of meteorology, all these crazy things that like people spend their whole lifetime studying, and the more they study, the more they realize they don't even scratch the surface. Like talk to a neurologist, talk to a rheumatologist, they don't even understand what it is they're working on. I'll tell you one funny thing is when I'm seeing patients that come in from rheumatologists who are the doctors that work on the immune system, most of them, the best they can do is give a patient an immune system suppressant drug. What does that tell me is they understand the immune system so poorly that the best they can do is just slow it down a little bit. You know what I mean? Like if it's going wrong, well, because, it'll have less errors when it's running slower. But to make it back up to speed and to fix it and optimize it, they're not there. They're not there. You know what I mean? Like, if I have a patient who has weak muscles, I'm not doing muscle transplants. I got to work with what they have. Right. And I watch as the inner workings of their musculature and the immune system that God gave them repairs a muscle based on some of the properties that God gave muscles. I'm just watching in awe that this even happens. Like, when I was first a new student, I had a patient who was an 80-something-year-old woman in a wheelchair. And at that point in time, I was like, I don't think old people can get stronger. They probably just die. I don't know what we're doing with them. And I remember she was one of the first patients I saw. And a few weeks later, she went from being in a wheelchair to I'm walking with her. And I'm like, 85-year-olds can get stronger. Who knew? I thought they were just going to die like as a kid. And you really realize like, wow, there's something inside people that even when they look like they're on death's door, healing still is happening. It's like things are still being repaired and fixed. There's something inside of this person that God put in there that's conducting miracles right now. What in the world am I even looking at? So yeah, the idea that it's all an accident is kind of insulting. But like, I think everybody has to admit that something special. Like we were joking around the other day, like one thing, if you really wanted to get an atheist aggravated with you, you could probably tell them like, man, I'll tell you the one thing about atheist scientists is they are so obsessed with God's creation. It's like they dig into the farthest reaches of creation to prove that God didn't make it. Yeah. While, they're learning more about him the whole time. They probably know more about the handiwork of God than most other people. And you almost want to tell them, I just want to shake your hand for loving what God made more than anyone I know. And they're like, When you think about it, it's like, what are they digging into? They're not digging into something they made. They're digging into something God made to try and prove them wrong. Isn't that funny? I just thought it was funny. If like somebody tried to prove that you didn't exist, Jamal, and they rooted through all your stuff, they went through all of your everything you built over the last year, all the projects you're real proud of. They watched all your videos and like somewhere in here is proof he doesn't exist. And I'm just glad I have such a loyal fan. Like, I don't know why he doesn't believe in me yet, but boy, he sure does pay me a lot of attention. Thanks, man. One day you shake his hand like, man, you knew more about me than anyone. Yeah. Thanks for doubting me. Anyway,
I think that's how a lot.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, I think that's how a lot of them actually eventually end up, getting saved and giving their lives and hearts to the Lord and stuff, because they see, it's hard to look at everything and not believe. And that's kind of this journey that I've been going through over the last 2 months or so. So yeah
Isn't that awesome? The other half of the evolution thing, and it's sort of funny, I'm not getting that much into evolution. It's just more of the beginnings of the concept of why do people go with evolution versus something else. Right. People could argue like microevolution, macroevolution, all the different genetics and things like that behind it. And there's a lot of cool stuff. Like in the briefest possible way of saying, like, I believe probably 90% of what evolutionists believe, because all they're looking at is the genetic processes that happen in front of them. And they're there, But what they're trying to say is that nothingness used genetics to create everything that we see, rather than God created genetics that do the things that we do see. Because I think they try to explain all the things they can't explain using genetics, rather than just appreciating genetics for what they actually do. Anyway, I won't get too much into that right now because it's such a long discussion. It's insane. But the thing I wanted to get into today, it was just of a fun thought, was you ever remember the story of the emperor's new clothes? Do you remember hearing that story?
I can't start telling the story, and I'll see if it comes back.
All right, this one was funny because there was a couple of hucksters that came into a town. They're just swindlers, snake oil salesmen, whatever you want to call them. A couple of con men walk into this town, and there's an emperor there. Let's put it in the past somewhere out where there's emperors. It's an old story, I think. I don't know if it's an Aesop's fable. We'll have to look that up. Who come up with this story? Anyway, the emperor's new clothes. You have these two guys, and they come up with this brilliant idea to become rich and powerful by doing absolutely nothing. And so what they think, we're gonna come in here, and what we're gonna tell people is we have come up with a way to make magical clothes that are invisible, and there's such fine quality you can't even feel it on your skin. It breathes better than any other fabric. It feels almost like you're naked. Anyway, so what they do, they sell this thing, and they say, but only the intelligent people in the town will be able to even see it. Most people, it'll be invisible to them because they're so stupid. And they go in and they tell the wise men of the emperor, and the wise men tell the emperor all these things. So everybody's got this expectation that smart people see what's going on. The stupid people are the ones that can't see it. So
hang on one second, just to kind of interject.
Oh yeah, did you look it up?
Yeah. So the Emperor's New Clothes is a literary folktale written by Danish author Hans Christian Andersen about a vain emperor who gets exposed before his subjects.
Hans Christian Andersen, cool.
Yeah. All right. I just want to say that.
Yeah. I remember I was thinking of Danny Kaye because he played Hans Christian Andersen in an old movie. Now that I think of it, I wonder, I'd have to rewatch that. Maybe we'll watch, that's when I was a kid, we watched that movie. Yeah. But, so yeah, gosh, Hans Christian Andersen, good one. So anyway, yeah, he wrote this little moral tale. So you got these shysters coming into this town, and now they bring out their loom, and it's invisible, but only to idiots. Everybody who's smart can see it. Mm-hmm. So the wise men are like looking at each other like, I see it. You see it? Oh yeah, I saw it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see it. And so they're looking at each other like, you see it? Yeah. Oh yeah. Gosh, I saw it for sure. So they're all trying to like sound like they're smart. They're all thinking, man, I'm an idiot. I don't even see it, but that guy sees it. I know he's an idiot. So now you got this thing where a whole bunch of people that know they see nothing are like, the other guys say they see it, and only idiots are not supposed to see it. Hopefully I'll be smart enough one day to start seeing it like these guys. And it gets all the way to the point where the wise men, these shysters go up and like, you need to tell the emperor. He's surely the wisest around and he'll see it. So everybody's convinced, oh, well, I know he'll see it because he's wise. I don't know why I'm an idiot, but I'm going to play along with everyone else. And they get into the presence of the emperor, and everybody else is saying that they can see it. And the emperor is like, well, I don't want to appear a fool to everybody. Everybody sees it but me. I'm the only idiot. I'm the emperor. I can't be an idiot. I see it completely. So the emperor puts on the clothes, and he's literally marching around the town completely buck naked and nothing. Mm-hmm. And everybody in a town has been convinced that the only reason they see a naked emperor, because they're kind of stupid, but they won't admit it because everybody else seems to see it. And one day, I guess at the end of the story, there's a little boy, and he's like, I see emperor naked. Naked. Look, he's naked. And everybody's like, no, stop it. Don't say that. And it was almost like it broke the spell. And the emperor looks down and is like, oh my gosh, I'm naked. You guys, you knew? I couldn't see it either, sir. I just didn't want to admit it. And everybody like comes clean or something like that. You'd have to read the rest of the story. But the thing I think is so funny is evolutionary theory, if you really think of it. And you got to figure Satan's pretty good at playing people for a fool. And we all know there's things in the world like Satan tempted Jesus with cities and power and kingdoms.
Mm-hmm.
So he has some control. He has there's whole kingdoms, whole monetary systems, whole giant power structures in the world that Satan controls.
Mm-hmm.
And we should know that. We've known that since the Bible. And when you watch politics and what's on TV, you're like, yeah, it kind of does look like that. You got I won't even get into some of it. I don't know if I'm going to get kicked off of YouTube for saying some of the particulars,
Yeah.
but everybody knows they see things going on in the world. It's like, man, did somebody like start that war to hide corruption and kill a bunch of innocent people? Can't be.
Well,
I don't see that happening.
It's like New York is saying that we have operational control of the border.
Yeah, it's just a weird lie that everybody knows is fake, but everybody on the TV says is true, and all the smart guys that they hired to go on TV say it's true, and the professors that they hire to follow an agenda at college say it's true, and it's like something like evolutionary theory, as far as I can say, billions or trillions of dollars, probably not trillions, but at least billions of dollars have gone into scientific exploration with the sole purpose of supporting evolutionary theory.
Mm-hmm.
So you have whole armies of scientists that are told, tell people that we evolved or you won't get any funding. Like one of my professors in college, it struck me as odd at the time because he was an anatomy professor and there weren't any monkeys on campus, none in the building, none that I saw, but he was writing a paper about how certain types of primates could show some stage of evolutionary process. And I'm like, you're an anatomist. Why don't you write papers about what you know? Mm-hmm. Instead, he got funding for supporting evolutionary theory. And that's not even what he was good at. You know what I mean? That's what he got paid to do. Yeah. But it wasn't what he taught. It wasn't what he spent most of his time doing. You know what I mean? It was just, it felt so weirdly, awkwardly forced that it was like, maybe he has some secret obsession with primate evolution he never talks about, but there's his paper. And maybe he did, I don't know. But it struck me as weird that college professor that taught about all the things he taught about would choose to do research in an area totally disconnected. But I wonder if it paid more. Right. I wonder if he couldn't get grant money for all the other things that he was brilliant about, but he was able to support a highly funded lie. And I think he bought into it. So why not? So, as far as he could tell, he was the only one that couldn't tell that the emperor, probably he's the only one that sees a naked emperor, but he's still going to go along with it. Why not? I've got a good job. Yeah. You have all these things set up where in the end you've got brilliant professor and he's got to get paid. So he's talking about monkeys evolving. You've got, brilliant medical researchers where they could be looking at the inner workings of the immune system and try to figure out how do we feed the proper nutrients into a dying system so that it reboots again and starts working properly. Instead, they're talking about evolutionary phenomena that they have to write into it. And one example I had, there's a friend of mine who is a black belt in karate that we took classes with, a really cool guy, really neat guy. He's actually Ukrainian. And we had a conversation, and he does antibiotic research in his doctorate work. And he was telling me that one of the problems that they run into with antibiotics is they keep finding sort of micro structures that are these fortifications against the antibiotics they're trying to use, so that there are these strains of bacteria they're finding that already have a defense structure. And I was like, that's really neat. You mean like what kind of structures you talk about? It's like, just a whole system that's working, that's keeping us, that's protecting the cell. And I was like, pretty complex structure. Yeah, very complex structures. And I guess he just threw out there like, yeah, we call them mutations. And I'm like, why would you call those mutations? He's like, oh, it's just the terminology we use. I'm like they're treating it like it's a random mutation that you find an entire complex microstructure. He's
Right.
like, yeah. And he's like, isn't that really insulting? Like, for one, when I was a kid, when they would talk about, scientific discoveries, they'd be named after the scientists that discovered them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so you guys get zero credit now if you discover something like that? It's like, well, not really. It's just my job. It's like, you may have been like, Watson and Crick kind of a thing. You just discovered something incredible and you were told to write it off as a random mutation. It's like, think about that. Like, if it wasn't for severely needing to push evolutionary theory, there is no way that a self-respecting scientist would ever let somebody tell them that in a fascinating find they made meant nothing and wasn't anything special.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it'd be like if you found a safe out in the woods and you cracked the code and inside of it you found another safe. You wouldn't think, a random mutation.
Right.
I guess safes appear inside of other safes at times.
Yeah.
I wonder what the chances of that is. You'd be like, wow, whoever hid this safe really wanted to protect what's inside.
Right.
This might be really good treasure, but you're not thinking like an accidental other safe. Like, oh, safe number 1 accidentally gave birth to another safe. You wouldn't even think that. That would be stupid. If you like somehow this was a design situation for there to be a safe within a safe. So I guess what I'm saying to that is I think it would be nice if people could wake up a little bit as Christians to realize the world has a master who has a motive to fool you. And he's not going to small efforts. He's going through great efforts.
Great efforts.
And like another thing that I'll throw out there, just because it's funny, but it's also sort of true. My grandfather worked for the CIA in the 50s, and they worked on different things than they do now. Who knows what they're doing now? But back then, we always try and get information out of him. And there's a lot of things he could never, ever tell us because of statute of limitations, sworn secrecy, confidentiality, whatever. He would hint at little things, and he would tell us what he was allowed to tell us, but there's very little he was allowed to tell us. So one day I was like, okay, I know you can't tell me much. Sum up, if you can, what it is the CIA does. So he laughs and he's like, they figure out how to kill people without anybody knowing we did it. Right. And I was like, that's the summary of the trillions of dollars. Who knows how much goes into the CIA? And so I was joking around with somebody because they were talking about Epstein and, different things like, and other fishy things that happen where people die or don't die or whatever happens and all the theories behind it. And they were saying, yeah, there was this one guy who was like a mortician or whatever, or some kind of like CSI guy. And he saw that the facial recognition of the picture they took of the corpse didn't match the structure of the face of Epstein on a skeletal level. And it was all like, and then that guy like disappeared. No one ever talked about it again or something, And I'm like, man, the poor CIA, they never get credit for all their hard work. You figure you make an organization that has no accountability, it has an endless budget, and their whole shtick is to try and kill people without anybody knowing that they did it. And they finally give you a clue. And as soon as you could say, look at the CIA, they did a pretty slick job there. And then they're like, you forget about it a week later. You figure all those CIA people are probably like, they don't even remember what we did. We even gave them a little clue. Right. It's like we don't get credit for anything, I don't know. I'm just teasing around like that they would be sad. Like no one appreciates the amazing work we do. We even gave them clues by making it seem ridiculous. Cameras going off. We made a bad movie script about it, and still people bought it. It's terrible. Like we could get away with anything. I don't know. I was just teasing around that. Like people won't let the CIA take credit for the things they do, even if they leave a messy job. No one will even believe they did it. Right. So imagine like all the really good work they do is like no one even knows. If we leave a million signs that we were there, they still don't know. We'll never get credit, And they're like my grandfather. Like I wish I could tell somebody what we did on their deathbed. I'm like, I don't know if the statute of limitations is over. Yeah. I wonder if CIA people are ever like, oh, please declassify that one. That was cool. Where we hid Hitler in Argentina or whatever, because that's a theory or maybe it's true. I don't know. But, like those kinds of things. You
Mm-hmm.
figure if that's real, some guy might be dying like, I was involved in that. No one knows. But all that to be said is like, I think if you wise up a little bit, you have an enemy, he lies, he comes up with things. We shouldn't be so surprised when the liar is good at lying.
Right.
But when God shows you, look, it's a naked emperor, and you're like, I wonder why everybody else is so deluded. It's like, don't be too surprised. They spent $1 billion. They hired 1 million professors. They hired a whole bunch of politicians and news people, and they're all part of Satan's thing. You know what I mean? Like, if they were part of the kingdom of heaven, why are they lying? If they were part of the kingdom of heaven, why aren't they sharing the gospel? If they were part of the kingdom of heaven, why is the work policy to never talk religion or money or politics or sex? And it's like all the things that really ruin people and affect people. No. Just talk about how we can stay in power and how our business can make money and continue to produce what we're producing. What are we producing? McDonald's hamburgers that kill people and feed the medical industry so that the pharmaceutical companies can make more money. Like, oh, so I'm not allowed to talk about Jesus so that happens? You know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of being silly and kind of not. It's like, what do you think you're dealing with when you're dealing with systems where they're not honoring God? You're not even allowed to tell the truth. Like, why are we getting in trouble for telling the truth? Whose idea is that?
Right.
You know what I mean? Does that build some kind of weird fake camaraderie to lie to all your patients, to lie to all your customers, to lie to all your coworkers? They're like, we don't want to have controversy. It's like, well, the controversy happens to be the truth.
Yeah.
Is the only thing that seems to be controversial to you. You're lying to your patients.
Well, that is the flip side.
Isn't that? I remember, I think I might have told you this one, but there back before UH bought it, there was a hospital near, maybe I shouldn't say the name, maybe that's a libel thing, but there was a hospital local to me, and UH is big, so no one knows what they bought. But anyway, particular local hospital. I went over there for a professional meeting, and I thought, what a neat way to network with other medical people. I can learn so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can hone my profession. Like I can talk to other therapists, other doctors. This is fantastic. What an amazing idea. I got invited out there and I thought it was wonderful, So the topic for the keynote speaker was how to tell white lies to your patients so that they'll just do what they should do. And I'm like, all these freaking SEALs are clapping. You idiots. And I'm just mad thinking the whole time, the whole room is happy about this. Yeah. What is this? I'm dealing with a bunch of people that are happy they can lie to their patients. And like, don't you know how to tell the truth? Don't you know how to answer someone's hard questions? You know what I mean? You got somebody who's dying of cancer, you're lying to them. You got somebody who's comes in there, they just got in a car accident, you're lying to them. You know what I mean? Someone's going in to ask questions about why why they lost their child, and you're lying to them. And they're all like, oh, I'm glad I can lie. And I'm just thinking, boy, that tells me more than I wanted to know about medicine. That tells me way more than I want to know about all these intelligent people that have no integrity and no guts. And they're clapping for dishonesty and manipulation of their patients, for expediency and dealing with humanity. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's easier for me not to have to face hard questions. Besides, we don't let people talk religion or money or sex or politics. Right. The only thing we can do is try and make them take this drug. You know what I mean? After a while, the whole thing gets real ugly really fast. But all that to be said, if we're, you said the flip side, man, is what is God trying to teach us? What is he letting us know? What is the kingdom of heaven all about? What does the truth entail? What is it like when people actually live together in unity and love each other and care about each other and discuss the real things? What is it like when a family actually gets along? You know what I mean? What's it like when mother and brother and sister and father support each other, just like a marriage should be, in good times and bad times, in sickness and and in, is it in sickness and in death? No, it ends in
Sickness
death.
and health.
Sickness and in health. I tell my wife, yeah, we're supposed to be married through death. Hey, so stop complaining about dying and get up. No, no, yes, it's sickness and in health, and so yeah, that was kind of my little thing on evolution. Is, number one, science is trying really hard and looking really stupid trying to answer questions that if you just look at it, you already know.
Right.
Like, that when I look at Jamal, I'm looking at a miracle and something that's an incredible design. Like, everything about you screams miracle. Um, but if I tell myself enough times that you are just a process of random mistakes happening in the cosmos that shouldn't exist, with a bunch of random molecular interactions that I don't even understand occurring in order to create it, and I have that level of faith and arrogance in something that doesn't even make sense to have happened, but
Right.
I can't believe that God, who probably must exist mathematically anyway, because for this miraculous nothing to exist, it had to have a creator.
Right.
So you can't even get beyond it. And so we know there's a God. Creation testifies that there's a God. He has to be there.
Right.
Otherwise, it's a bunch of malarkey. And so, and you look around and you got everybody saying the same thing. Like, yeah, the emperor's got clothes. Yeah, how about that stock exchange? Or how about that water cooler at the job site? You know what I mean? Like, and you're like, meanwhile, they're going through a divorce. Their dad just died. They're bankrupt. And the guy they voted for is brain dead on television, and they can't talk about any of it. They're like, none of this makes sense. But I guess how are the Cleveland Browns? And then at our work, one of the ladies there is like, can't talk about sports. People fight about that. Like, what are they going to talk about? Dryer lint?
Yep.
Paint sure drying good today, eh, Bob? um, you know, try and make it dumb things down so much there's nothing even worth talking about. Might as well just sit there and stare. So
Right.
I don't know. That was my little spiel. I don't know if any of that made sense to anybody, but what what do you think? Can you bring it back to planet Earth, Jamal, on that one?
Oh no, you did a great job with that. I mean, just most of it's once you present the evidence to somebody, if they really want to see it, it's there. If they don't want to see it, then they're going to look away. And so, I mean, with the push for propaganda these days, I mean, all of that stuff, Satan is the father of. All of that stuff is the same tactics that he's used since the Bible told us that he um, convinced Eve to eat the fruit, the forbidden fruit. So, and that brings up another question too for me, and we could probably talk about this in another video. What did Adam and Eve look like before they knew what they looked like? Before they were naked. You know what I'm talking about?
Ooh. Oh, that's
So
interesting.
yeah. So let's set that one up for another discussion. What did Adam and Eve look like before they knew what they looked like? Because after they bit the apple, that's when Adam realized that he was naked, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Oh, that's fun.
and
That's trippy. I like that.
right, so if we were made in God's image, then see where I'm going with this. So that's something to think about.
That that's deep. I like that.
That's a thought that's been in my head too. So, but yeah, man. Yeah, evolution. These guys are they they go out of their way to try to convince people that God doesn't exist, and a rational person, anybody that's seeking God and really wants to understand or know if God exists, there's a plethora of nature I mean, anything that you want to take a look at down to the micro level of anything, there's a God. I mean, just take math, how perfect math is. Um, you know, gravity. Just think about gravity. If gravity wasn't perfect, a little bit less gravity, everything gets thrown out of whack. Too much gravity, everything gets thrown out of whack. Gravity is perfect all throughout the universe. So, yeah, that's just my little closing thought on that. So,
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, one day I'm gonna have to dig into that because that's one I haven't studied as much myself as to how the fine tuning
mm-hmm,
is determined.
mm-hmm,
Like, how do they know the limits of what gravity can't be? But I keep hearing from physicists that talk about it. That I think they even had a little clip from the Big Bang Theory, or no, it was the spinoff from Big Bang Theory. Uh, what's that guy's name? The one
Sheldon.
that's autistic, Sheldon, the one with he's a little kid.
Yeah,
I saw a clip on YouTube the other day, and little Sheldon
yeah,
is giving a compliment to his mom, and he's like, "Did you know, Mom, that the universe couldn't exist
yeah,
if gravity was even a tiny bit weaker or a tiny bit stronger?" And he
yeah,
was like, "If the strong force was uh, was like 1% difference than I think the electrical force,
yeah,
then nobody could exist." And he's like, "But you don't believe in God." I don't, but it really begs the question of why does it look designed? And it's like, and why is it that what is the chance, Mom, that a little boy like me would have the perfect mom like you? And
yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, I'm gonna pull that
they're
clip
like,
up.
they're
Yeah,
what's that?
I'm gonna see if
It
I
was
can.
something like that. I probably totally butchered it, but
Yeah,
it was cute. But you can tell the writers are probably doing one of two things. They're giving homage to evolution. They're giving homage to, their belief that there is no God. For some reason,
well
they
they don't.
have to sell that.
Well, they don't want to offend
But on
anybody.
this, but at the same sentence, they gave glory to God in doing it, and it's like really makes you wonder, why does the world have to operate in such a strange level? Like, why can't they just honor God? They're not allowed to do it, but they gave a hint, really strong one,
Yeah,
while saying, "But of course, I still don't believe. I'm the smartest person you know, but I don't believe in God because I'm
yeah,
not allowed for some reason."
yeah,
What a sad thing for a little child to be told, "Well, you're so smart, you're not allowed to believe in God, even though you just proved him right."
yeah,
It's weird, but it's not that different from real life because you run into a lot of like very intelligent people. They almost have this sadness behind their eyes of like, "Well, I've been told that everybody else that's smart sees clothes on the emperor, and I know I'm smart."
yeah,
It's like, come on, guys, he's naked.
yeah,
You're allowed to admit it now.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah. I agree.
crazy stuff.
All right, man. Well, we're coming up on an hour. Um, pretty, pretty interesting discussion. Maybe not your typical conversation, but we're just kind of getting things started, and prayerfully, things will get better as we try to improve the program and improve our content and improve just getting together to do the podcast at all. So, uh, if you're watching the video later, if you come back and watch the video, I appreciate you watching. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. And anything else you got to say, Rob?
I'll say, God bless you all. We love you. Um, whatever, wherever this is posted, you got some questions or things you want to see or think we're nuts, you can post that in the comments. And I'm expecting to see some coincidence in there that again points to what Jamal was thinking about. Like the guy that's trying to prove you wrong accidentally totally like hits on something you were thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love when stuff like that happens. But
Yep.
yeah, man.
All right.